Hello and welcome to the Walk-Off, everybody. I'm Scott Belford, joined as always by the best co-host in the biz, Adam Mack. We're so thrilled to have Jim Riley from Ball Cap Sports joining us. Jim, welcome to the show, buddy. Thanks for taking the time.
Thank you guys for having me. It's always fun to hop on and talk baseball, talk Blue Jays with you guys.
Man, so much to talk about, so let's just get right into it. We know you might need to go play dad at any moment, so we're going to make sure to squeeze as much knowledge out of you while we can.
Let's roll.
Let's start with Cleveland being eliminated and all of the talk surrounding Terry Francona and the very interesting decision to go with Savali over Bieber. Savali hadn't pitched in 14 days in a game. When I heard that, it's funny because it was one thing to see them use their, fourth, fifth starter, if you will, but to see them do it when he hadn't pitched since the regular season was a little eye-opening, and obviously everyone was questioning it, and now it turns out they should be questioning it. Where are you at on this?
Hindsight's 2020, right? But that's the best part. We can pick this stuff apart. This is at the end of the day, he's going to get crushed, rightfully so, for not throwing Shane Bieber out there. Didn't matter who we put out there. He could have planned a bullpen day. He could have started the game with Clase. It would not have mattered. I think the point to crush him is that he didn't go with Bieber. He was under the he fell under the trap of, well, we might have to play tomorrow, and if we play tomorrow, we don't want to give that away. And I think that was his mistake, because there is no tomorrow in the postseason if you lose in the elimination game. So Shane Bieber's going to be rested up and ready to go for opening day in 2023 now. So I think that's the biggest thing. Savali obviously looks bad because he got blitzed in the first inning, but and he really had not pitched well this year in general. So it was a questionable move to begin with, but ultimately he could have thrown anybody out there. If it wasn't McKenzie wasn't good to go, but Bieber would have been. That's the mistake. He didn't go with Bieber.
Adam and I were talking before we hit record here, buddy, and I know Adam was like, could it have come from ownership? Like, this seems like a move. Now, maybe we're looking too into it, because I'm on the side of, like, is it possible Bieber just couldn't go? Like, is it possible maybe there was a tweak or an injury that they're just not telling us about? Because it really, like, question marks surround this decision so much so.
Sure. Word from the broadcast said that Bieber told Tito that he was good to go.
Good to go.
But he didn't want to use it. I would think that is probably a likely scenario if it was a younger manager, an inexperienced manager. Terry Francona's got a lot of weight that he can throw around. He's an experienced manager. He has won at the highest level. He's been to the postseason time and time again. He's proven himself. So, yeah, I mean, unless something comes out that Bieber was hurt, I think this was just – we all make it. It was just a It was his decision. It was a miscalculation, and it didn't go his way. Now, this shows you that even the best of them can make a mistake. We'll jump on the inexperienced guy for making a mistake and say it's inexperienced. When the experienced guy makes the mistake, it really just shows you at any point anybody can make a misstep, and I think that's what this was.
Which is so correct, and the experience is why I can't help but be like, was there something else, right? It's so easy to look at a move being made by an inexperienced manager and just chalk it up to, there's a mistake. But when it's Tito, I'm like, yeah, but what else don't we know? Like, who? You don't think Terry Francona is the guy that's going to put tomorrow ahead of today? Like, it just doesn't seem like that's possible.
I don't know.
I agree with you.
I kind of, maybe I'm overthinking this now too, but like, there is he's been there, he's done that, he's got multiple World Series rings as a manager. I think maybe the calculus, and he would never admit this, right, publicly, but maybe the calculus was, look, if we get Shane Bieber 3 times against the Astros, that's our best chance to get to the World Series. Yeah. I like our chances with a bullpen day or whatever against the Yankees in 5, like in a 1-game playoff. And maybe it was just a weighing of the scales, and that's where he thought, you know what, I'm not here to lose in the ALCS. I'm here to win the World Series, and sometimes you got to go for it, right? And this is the other thing is like you can make safe decisions every year and make the playoffs 20 years out of 20 years, or
Right.
you can go for it and, have decisions like this that don't work out. But these are also the decisions that do get you to 2 World Series rings, right? Like being bold
I
and
really
having
like that, Adam. I
having
really like that,
those hard decisions, those risks pay off. And at the end of the year, what does it matter if you're eliminated in the ALDS or the ALCS? Like, you're here for the rings.
Do you think that's a possibility, Jim? That they just looked at it and they're like, listen, if we can't pitch Bieber 3 times in the ALCS, we don't have a chance anyways. And so
Very well could.
Right?
Very well could. You figure you go Savali, you get what you can out of him. You hope it doesn't go the way it goes. Then you rely on that bullpen. Basically, Savali was out there. I think Tito in his mind was like, this is a bullpen day. We're going to start with Savali. We'll see what we can get from him. As soon as it gets shaky, he's out, and we go to the bullpen and we say Bieber. Because, if you fire that bullet, Yankees are going to be in an interesting spot because they fired the Nestor Cortez bullet yesterday, and now you're not going to have Nestor until game 3 or 4 against Houston. So you'll see him once, maybe twice. Will the Astros, will Yankee fans, Cole is going to be pushed back because they needed him to get to this point. So it's a completely different animal in the postseason, and it is magnified. It is hard to win in the postseason because there are so many games. It's not as simple as you win your division and you're in the ALCS like it was 20 years ago or 50 years ago. When you win the AL, you're in the World Series. You got a lot of games to win. There's a lot of chess management that needs to go down, and if it doesn't go well, you look bad.
This is where depth is really starting to play a part, right? Is the championship series. And this is where we watched Philadelphia cobble together their pitching throughout this playoff so far. We've watched the Yankees push their guys to levels that maybe they wouldn't normally. We've watched, we were just talking about Tito in this decision here, right? The Guardians kind of. So my question for you, because it kind of reminds me of, so I participated in the Seattle International Comedy Competition about 5 years ago, and it's one of the bigger comedy competitions in North America, and the way they break it down is you're in your first round against 16 other people, and it's 5 minutes. And dude, they're all killers. It is wild, the 5 minutes. And then what they do is they take those top 5 from that 16, they move on to the next round, and now they're doing 10 minutes. And it is so wild to see these guys that you would watch do 5 minutes and be like, they're unbeatable. There's no way that they can lose this competition. And then you watch their 10 minutes, and you're like, oh, okay.
Who is this guy?
Dropped off in a hurry. So when you look at these championship series and the fact that there's only 1 day off between, we're going to watch these teams need to go with their 4 starters. They're going to have to. There's not going to be an option. You're not going to be able to do what Philadelphia did with Syndergaard and kind of massage a bullpen day in there. So when you look at these championship series, who are the teams you like? Who has the depth? Who do you think can do this?
So I have, to give any credibility to the words that I'm about to say, I've been watching all year long. I've been watching, but I think I've watched enough innings here in the postseason, and I've also done deep dives along the way for every series, for every team leading up to this. So I have looked at I've seen everything on the field. I've seen everything and on the stat sheet, and I really like Houston against the Yankees. I think that the bullpen for the Astros has been amazing. This Astros bullpen from top to bottom is legit. Yankees bullpen has been good. Yankees have a few guys that are really good, really trustworthy, but this Astros bullpen edges out, and this could end up being a bullpen series. It was a bullpen World Series last year, if you remember, between Atlanta and Houston, and Atlanta's bullpen beat them out. If this becomes a ALCS about the bullpens, I like Houston to come over that. The head-to-heads over the history don't look that great, and I understand a lot of that's regular season numbers, but what that also tells me is if you're a hitter, how are you picking up the ball out of Framber Valdez's hands? How do you like his release point? All of those things. How do your mechanics, your swing path match up against Justin Verlander and his fastball? If you don't have a good history, overwhelmingly, if he's dominated you, I don't care if it's a regular season or postseason, that tells me that something's not right with how he pitches. A lot of stats for the regular season we want to throw out because, guys might not be bearing down as much as they could be, or may not be as focused or as locked in as they will be in the postseason. But some of those head-to-head stats I do like to lean on. So when we look at the Yankees and the Astros, a lot of it looks in favor of the Houston Astros. There are some head-to-head stats that look really bad for Jameson Taillon. I mean, duck and cover when Taillon goes on the mound against Houston. I don't think it's going to go well at all. Also doesn't look good for Cortez against the Houston bats. Does for Cole, but again, we may only get Cole one time if you're a Yankee fan. So for that point, I'm leaning Houston here when I look at all of that information. On the National League side of things, Philly's not going to be able to win the NLCS like they did last night with just 2 runs. They will if they get that kind of pitching. And that's what they've been getting all postseason long. Nola and Wheeler have been exceptional. And it continued again yesterday. And if that's how it's going to go, you'll win the 2-0 games if those pitchers continue to throw up blanks. So we'll
7-game series is different though, right?
Exactly. So I do not expect that you're going to be able to win games with a couple of solo home runs like Philly put up, because that's the argument for the Yankees. The Yankees have been relying on the home runs. And you're saying, well, look, Philly just won last night. But Philly can't win a 7-game series by doing that. So I feel like Philly, the pitching has been great. I picked Philly. I have Philly and I have Houston getting through. But I think, again, just like I looked at we talked about those Yankees and Astros matchups, a lot of it favoring Astros players. We look at the Philly side of thing, it looks good for Philly again in the same light that it looks good for Houston. I like a lot of the matchups. I like a lot of the head-to-head. I like a lot of what we've seen from, listen, Nola and Wheeler. It's one of those things. If they get hot, that's what half of this is. Get hot, get lucky. If they're going to be this hot, it's absolutely unbelievable. Now, San Diego's bullpen has been great, and they're going to need to continue to be great. They've been better than Philly's bullpen. But Nola and Wheeler, it just kind of smells like Randy Johnson, Kurt Schilling, to go back to that Arizona World Series. Sometimes you get 2 pitchers that are just lights out. That can do it for you.
Yeah. Buddy, Zach Wheeler. Can we just talk Zach Wheeler for a few minutes here? Because honestly, this is a dude who went from being touted as highly overpaid to a legit ace that is now on a team-friendly contract. How good is Zach Wheeler? He legit is a Cy Young candidate again this year.
I know. And on the onset of it, you might not look at it. He was looking at his numbers, 12-7 this year, ERA at 2.82. But what he's doing now is just, it could help. It could lead Philly. This is now. He was good this year. He was good last year. Since he's come to Philly, anybody that remembers New York Mets Zach Wheeler, that's not who is pitching for the Philadelphia Phillies. No, he is a completely different player, and he is with him and Nola. It is just a different. It's just a different animal. Good luck getting over those two, because what Zach Wheeler's doing is the stuff that gets you there. When we look at how he's compared against the rest of the league, getting the swings and the misses, getting the spin, the velo, he's just kind of got everything working for him.
He's been my favorite to watch in these playoffs, and we've seen a lot of really good pitching performances. But like you said, man, the swing and miss on the guy is unreal. The way he moves the ball around the zone, the way that he is so unpredictable. Like, man, one of my favorite things to do is try and predict what the next pitch is.
Sure.
And I feel like as a fan, you even have a little bit of an advantage on the batter who's just in it, right? Like you're getting info from the announcers and they're putting up what he just threw and all of this, and you can't predict the guy.
And that's what's great about. He's got the fastball slider combo, and that's what he leans on heavily. And we're seeing pitchers, that combination, and you throw in the sinker where he locates the sinker.
Yeah.
On the black. And if it's not on the black, you think it's going to be on the black. So you can't help but swing at it and look bad. What that pitch combination is just, I mean, we're seeing Jacob deGrom with the fastball slider. We're seeing Spencer Strider this year with the fastball slider. Those two, if you do it right, it's deadly.
So we are going to get into LA in a second here. I want to talk stuff coming out of Dodgers land about Trea Turner and the possibility of them moving on from him and focusing their energy on Aaron Judge. I want to talk about the Angels. But before we do any of that, I want to get into some online Twitterverse stuff, which obviously isn't a great representation of every fan base, but I did want your opinion on all of the MLB have screwed the Guardians takes, right? Just with the way that Game 5 went down and was pushed. Obviously, MLB can't control the weather.
Right.
But I know there's a lot of talk about MLB wanting their last big market team to be in, which is hilarious to me, to me, because the blinders you got to have on as a Guardians fan to consider San Diego's $207 million payroll, Philadelphia's $245 million payroll, and the lowest payroll of $175 million from the Astros as small market is hilarious. Do you have anything to add on that idea that the Guardians got screwed by MLB?
I think it's just conspiracy theory stuff. That's what it is. I don't think that there's anything to that. If they wanted the biggest markets in there, then the Dodgers would not have been. I think about the cash cow that would be a New York LA World Series, a LA New York NLCS. If they're doing that, then they would be pushing those teams along. So I don't buy it. I know that there's some talk about how Cleveland got screwed over by the rain out, having the extra day, because then New York, instead of throwing Tyone, threw Cortez out there. But you couldn't play that game. You could not play that game. There were before the Yankees won, there were people saying that MLB screwed the Yankees out of that Game 5 crowd that night. So it just depends on how it all plays out. But I think that that's just conspiracy theory. And now listen, I'll get into some conspiracy theories. I'm down for a few good conspiracy theories, but I'm not buying that.
But you got better than that. That's right.
Yeah, I'm not buying that one.
All right, let's talk the Dodgers here. Really interesting to see the most sought-after free agent, the biggest name in baseball in maybe years, hitting free agency, and Aaron Judge. Obviously, there are going to be some mega players and some major money being thrown his way. The New York Yankees seem like the most likely candidate, but as this starts to unfold, there are reasons to think that maybe a West Coast team could be heavily involved. And now these rumors are coming out about the Dodgers perhaps moving on from Trea Turner and taking that money that they would have focused on him and turning it on Aaron Judge. What are your thoughts on Aaron Judge and where he could wind up?
I've been talking about possible Aaron Judge Dodgers for weeks now, and it has started to gain some more momentum. I feel like it makes all the sense in the world for him to go to LA. They have a ton of money coming off the books. Now, part of the reason is because they have a lot of free agents. They've got a lot of work to do. They need to focus on pitching for sure. But this is a team where if you take the Trea Turner money and you don't bring Justin Turner back, there is David Price money coming off the books as well, $16 million. So you add all that up, and all of a sudden they have money for Aaron Judge, and the team is improved. Aaron Judge over Trea Turner, they're probably going to have to pick one. I don't think they could end up with both of them. Maybe they could. It's the Dodgers. If there's one team that could do it, it would be them. But I think it makes all the sense in the world for him to look at it. Like Cody Bellinger has completely fallen off, and it got to a point where Trace Thompson was in the outfield for the Dodgers. And I'm not saying anything bad about Trace Thompson, but Trace Thompson is not of the elite that you're looking for at that point. And Chris Taylor really struggled this year. So the Dodgers have the need, and I think they make it. I think that you can go into a situation where Yes, LA should be in because I think San Francisco is going to be in.
Yeah.
I think the Padres will be in. I think everyone's going to be in on Aaron Judge. If you have money, and the Padres have over $100 million coming off the books. The Giants have nearly $100 million coming off the books. So these teams all have the money. They all have the need. Aaron Judge is going to get paid. I think he will end up back with the Yankees in the end, but it's going to cost the Yankees a lot more than they even think because they're going to be bidding against teams that have deep pockets.
Jim, I'm curious if you think it's possible that the Aaron Judge sweepstakes, if it does go to the Yankees, actually winds up being almost detrimental to that team in the long run. Do you think that they could wind up overpaying for him to a level that handcuffs them a little going forward?
I think financially, I don't know if we can ever say the Yankees will be handcuffed financially.
Okay.
But I do think if you're looking at, number of years, you're looking at a player that you're paying to produce, 50 home runs every year, and you're the last 3 years of that contract and he's a 25 home run hitter. That's where it starts to get, you start to wonder if it would hurt the Yankees because he just won't. He'll be on contract. That he'll have a big contract. They'll feel like they need to play him. I mean, just look at what happened with Albert Pujols down the stretch before this year. But with the Angels, you felt like you had to play that guy that had the big contract. So, do the Yankees have to go? They'll, I think, match the dollars. It'll be the years that the winning team has to go above and beyond. Everybody will be able to meet that 40 AAV, 45 AAV, but will you do that for 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, 8 years? Maybe the team that's willing to go to 8 that gets Judge.
So, Jim, my question to you is if you are a front office and obviously you look at Aaron Judge and you see the player and the talent level that he can bring to your team, but you also need to look into the future when it comes to term, because term, you were just touching on it, right? Term is what's going to make this deal hurt in the end.
Yeah.
Do you think it is more beneficial for a team to maybe go way over what the average annual value would be?
Yeah.
Than it is to give term? And when I say that, I mean, like, maybe it's better for a team to go 7 years and pay him what you would over 10, but not have those last 3 years. Do you think that's more a likely scenario, or do you think there will be a team that winds up with Aaron Judge in their uniform at 40?
I think that's a good point. You can do that. I feel like GMs are more inclined to try to prolong the money, try to push that money back because they may not be there in 7 years. They want to win now. They have a they have a budget right now. So if I can, instead of giving Aaron Judge the 50 for 5, if I can make it 40 for 7 or however the math works out, I'd rather have that extra $10 million right now so that I can go get another relief pitcher for job security right now. I'll worry about the $40 million at the end of the contract if I'm still here in 6 or 7 years.
I love that 100%. Right, not my problem. And if it is my problem, we probably won a World Series. Yeah,
right. Exactly. Yep.
All right, sticking with the Dodgers. This is, I think, a real consideration that not everybody's talking about right now. But what happens with Trevor Bauer next year? Because there is some smoke coming from that camp with Trevor Bauer that is going to be vindicated in the end here through his legal proceedings. If that happens, does he come back to the Dodgers, or are those bridges burnt within that clubhouse?
I think he's done with the Dodgers, honestly. I do. I think those days are done. And I've also got, guys, why don't you two banter back and forth about Bauer for a minute, and I will be right back, okay?
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
You go be a dad.
Thanks, Jim. Yeah, that's a really interesting quagmire, if you will. Do you think, Adam, that anyone takes a chance on Trevor Bauer?
Oh, totally. Someone has to. Yeah, look, he's a Cy Young caliber pitcher. I mean, I don't know what he's going to be after taking a year off, but I would imagine...
Year and a half off, yeah.
Of all the sports, though, and of all the positions, I feel like being a pitcher would be one of the easiest positions to not quote unquote lose a step from taking a year off.
Yeah, I mean, if he can keep his
as long as he's been
physical
throwing in the
conditioning
off
up,
season and
yeah.
he's conditioned and he's still he's from an age standpoint still in his prime. It's not a running back in the NFL that was suspended for a year and comes back and the game is too fast for him now and he doesn't have those same reflexes. It's
I just wonder what organization would take the heat that comes with Trevor Bauer, because it really isn't a very good look. Even if Trevor Bauer is completely vindicated and proven 100% that he was innocent throughout this whole thing, and it's proven that the lady that this was all about wound up, being completely lying about the whole thing, and this was a we got you type of thing. It's still
it is a stick. I mean, even us right now, we are tiptoeing around the topic, right? It is a controversial, obviously horrific situation if it's true, right? But if we just play it under the assumption that it's not, let's just say he's completely vindicated and follow that hypothesis or that hypothetical to its end, there has to be a team.
The Rangers?
Could they get him to play shortstop?
Texas. Send him to Texas. Yeah.
I think for me,
Jim.
Bauer feels like Texas is a good idea. I also think the Angels, in their desperation for pitching, feels like a potential landing spot. If he does come out of this and vindication, like you were just talking about, I think the Angels in a trade situation where essentially, the Dodgers might not get much back for him, but they get that salary relief, or maybe they split the salary. They do something. If they want to get a prospect back, they split the salary and get a prospect back. But I think Angels for Bauer, Rangers is a good idea if he's able to get back into the league.
Let's keep this focus on the Angels, because I do want to talk about what's going on there with Artie Moreno, all of the rumors around selling the organization, all of the talk of Ohtani and where he could be going. I know that he came out in a article with a Japanese outlet yesterday or the day before, I think it was, and he just said that he was disappointed in the season. How could he not be?
Sure. That's
right?
that's only because
that's
they
not
came
news.
out of it's only because they came from Ohtani is that news. Oh, he's going to get
exactly.
Traded. Right.
Exactly. Nobody cared how Rendon felt about the the season.
What is Jared Walsh? How's Jared Walsh feeling? What is how's Luis Rengifo feel?
But I do want to talk about really quickly. You look at Brandon Marsh and what getting out of that Angels organization has done for him. You look at what it did for Albert Pujols. It just seems like anybody who leaves that Angels organization, it's almost like a weight is lifted off their shoulder, and all of a sudden they're able to perform to that level. There's almost a love of the game again. Watching Brandon Marsh out in center field with the Phillies, just smiling and laughing, and so. Do you think that it is possible that they could move on from Ohtani? And is it possible that Ohtani could even be better on a good organization?
So I will say this about Brandon Marsh. He has made some mechanical changes at the plate. So that is one of the reasons I think that's fueling his change offensively. But no, he definitely feels like he's having a fun, right? I mean, how couldn't you? I mean, this Phillies team, the fan base, when you're winning, the fan base loves you. And then when you're hating or when you're losing, they hate you more than anything under the sun. But when you're winning, this Phillies fan base is going to love you. And that's a great clubhouse. I want to be a part of that clubhouse. That group of dudes, that would be so much fun to be with Bryce Harper and Kyle Schwarber. I mean, they all just look like a fun group of guys. So he's probably having a blast. I would say with that ownership looming changeover, getting a new owner in there, I think that's going to make it very hard to trade Ohtani, because that's your best asset. And would you want to buy a team that has just traded away your best asset, your best marketing piece, a team that has a Mike Trout that is going to be on the back half of his career, that you're stepping in as Mike Trout is going to start to decline, and there's Mike Trout injury worries. Doesn't look appealing. So I think they have to hold on to him through the ownership change. Unlike the Soto situation with Washington, because who knows when that team's going to get sold. That could take forever. So I feel like Ohtani trade rumors, they're going to be rampant through this offseason. I'm sure I'm going to do content about it because there will be a ton of smoke. But in the end, I'll be shocked if that goes down, because why would you buy the team? Why would you buy the team if the best asset is just traded away?
So I got a question for you that I already know the answer to. I'm
love
well
those
aware,
questions.
Yeah, like I'm well aware that there is zero chance of this happening, but I am curious on your thoughts. And Jim, if you got to take off, buddy, totally get it, man. Okay,
we're good.
There's a lot of talk online about, can you possibly, if you're the Angels, move Ohtani and Trout, get all that money off your books, and start over? Because let's face it, this Angels team is a frickin' mess. I haven't seen an organization this poorly run. I can't even think of another team. Like, forget about baseball. Like, I mean, I'm sure we could come up with a few, but like, man, they are deep down that rabbit hole of disparity and hopelessness. And if I was an Angels fan, I would be pulling my hair out. I wouldn't even, like, just to look at an organization that has two generational talents like they do in Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani, and the fact that they have literally done zero with it. Zero. Like, have given that fan base not even a smidgen of excitement or hope over the last 5 years. If you're the general manager, and again, I know this can't possibly happen, but if you're the general manager, does it make sense to try and move both Trout and Ohtani?
I think the player you trade, I think you can trade Ohtani. I think that it is Trout is the guy that has to go. Really? I know, kiddo. Yeah, because I feel like you have a situation with Ohtani where he's young, he's 27, he's 28, he's transcendent. He's your future. Mike Trout is entering his age 31 season. He's far more expensive. I think the player, if you're picking, if you have to choose a direction, I think Trout's the player that you deal because of the age, because of the money that's tied into it. Ohtani's going to have that kind of money, but Ohtani is 3 years younger than Mike Trout. So if you're thinking of it from a business standpoint, you've got 6 or 7 elite Ohtani years ahead of you. You have maybe 2 or 3 elite Trout years ahead of you. So that's, if you can, that's the player you trade. And Trout, I believe, is still good enough where if you share some of that contract, you should be able to get a good return. Maybe you do like what Boston did when they traded Price and Betts, and Boston and then the Dodgers basically shared the rest of the David Price contract and got some pieces back in return. I think that is what, if you're the Angels, you should consider to do. Do
you think they would consider that? Do you think they would consider that?
No, probably not. I don't think they would. But if you're gonna break it down, rebuild it, and start over, I think you start over with Ohtani. And Trout is the piece that, if you can get some good prospects back, that would be the way. Either way, it's not a desirable situation. You want to have those two. You want to build around those two. You want to win with those two, but they haven't shown that they can do that.
Which is crazy, because I feel like there's 29 other baseball teams that probably could have, but maybe I'm
no,
maybe
I mean,
I'm putting too bad of a light on the Angels organization.
It's really Mike Trout. Mike Trout should be in the postseason. Mike Trout should have had at least 5 or 6 postseason appearances at this point in his career. And what's he got? 1? It's just not. It's unacceptable.
It's
unacceptable what they've done. Yeah,
it's unacceptable. All right, Jim. Let's talk some Blue Jays here before we let you go.
Yep.
I want your opinion on John Schneider. It just feels like it is taking a long time for them to lock up a guy they already know everything about. And I'm well aware that there is kind of an unwritten rule in MLB that you don't announce any big things during the playoffs. You let the playoffs shine on their own.
Mm-hmm.
Is this a little weird?
I feel like they should have announced that he was the interim tag was gone when they officially made
the
playoffs.
Press conference.
Yeah, they should have. I mean, this should have been all right. Celebrating the postseason win. Interim tag is gone. 3-year deal for John Schneider. And now that they're dragging it out, behind closed doors, maybe Schneider knows the deal. Maybe he's.
We don't know.
But
that's
because
a good point.
That's the point. That would be the only thing is if they're leaving him in the dark. And I got to think they are not. If they were leaving him in the dark, then that could lead to some frustration on his behalf. But I would hope that they are communicating with him better than they are with the general population and the media.
You would hope, right?
You would hope that, because otherwise this would be a bad look if, I mean, there's who else is out there? I really don't think that I don't want Joe Girardi. I don't want Joe Madden. I don't want those guys. I want somebody that knows this young core, like John Schneider knows the young core. That's what I want. Could you get a proven postseason manager? I mean, who's out there, right? Who's out there at this point that you would want? I think you got to give it to Schneider. And again, I'm just hoping that maybe behind closed doors, they've been a little bit more communicative to Schneider.
That's a great point, that there's almost no way that John Schneider doesn't know what's going on. And if he doesn't, then it is weird. Then it is a problem. And obviously they're looking elsewhere. I just don't understand why you wouldn't announce it if this is kind of already the decision. It feels like John Schneider is the decision.
Right.
But it has been odd the way they presented it in the press conference, even bringing up that they think he's the best guy, but they still need to do their due diligence. Like, either say it or don't say it. It just
I mean, I really can't. I'm trying to rack my mind about who is out there for a potential manager. And you won't, unless there's somebody I'm thinking of. There's no Buck Showalter sitting out there. There's nobody out there that has 20 years of experience. Now, again, I know Joe Girardi, I know Joe Madden, but I don't think those guys fit here. I don't think there is no one sitting on a white horse ready to ride in with a ton of postseason experience and knows all the levers to pull during the postseason. Because that would be the only upgrade, right? Is get somebody that could take this team over the hump. Unless
you're poaching from another organization, their bench boss or something like that, or a first base coach, unless you're going to go a route like Stubby Clapp with the Cardinals, who also just doesn't have managerial experience anyway. So it doesn't feel like you're actually getting a managerial upgrade. You're just changing regimes. And maybe that's what this front office feels they need to do. Like, maybe that's why they haven't committed, because there is all the talk, obviously, of how collaborative that organization is, and that if you cut off Charlie Montoyo, that it's literally just putting John Schneider in as the same group of guys, and maybe that's what they feel. But it didn't feel that way at the end of the season. Did you kind of get the feeling watching John Schneider manage that he was a different voice?
Yeah, I felt like it was I do. I 100% do. So why wouldn't you give him the chance? I'm looking at potential opportunities. Kevin Long, Phillies hitting coach, emerging as a candidate. I don't want it. I don't want a guy that's going to come in and start telling Bo, who basically listens to his father when it comes to hitting, tell Bo how to hit. I don't want Kevin Long telling Vladdy Guerrero how to hit. How'd that hitting coach work with Nick Castellanos this year? Not well. Kyle Schwarber, still the same old Kyle Schwarber. Bryce Harper, it doesn't matter. I'm not going to give Kevin Long, the Phillies hitting coach, a ton of credit for what has happened offense. I'll give him credit for Alec Bohm. Alec Bohm had a nice season, but outside of that, Castellanos with a down year. Schwarber, if Schwarber all of a sudden was now a 300 hitter, then I would say, oh, Kevin Long's got the secret sauce. He's got the juice. That's what we need. But Schwarber did what Schwarber does. Bruce Bochy, I can't imagine. It looks like he's meeting with the Rangers. Now, there was the Astros bench coach, Joe Espada, was one of the finalists last year for the Mets. And I remember diving into Joe Espada's career, and I like Joe Espada, but Joe Espada does not bring the Blue Jays anything better than what Schneider does. I don't think
this is what I meant, right?
There.
Like, there are options out there, but we're talking first base coaches and hitting coaches and bench like no one with actual tangible managerial experience, right? Not that that couldn't work, but
what about if the Jays are waiting to see who gets fired? Like, that isn't available right now, but if they're waiting on like a Don Mattingly or something like that.
Well, we know Mattingly is going to walk, right? So he's free. The firings that have been made, there's nothing that appealing from that heap of managers. The Kansas City manager, Matheny, who's out. Obviously, White Sox La Russa, he's done with baseball altogether. I mean, it's an interesting idea. Maybe Mattingly would be somebody, and I guess maybe you could convince me Mattingly's an interesting choice, but he could not get Miami to the next level.
No,
he did not make it with the Dodgers. They ended up replacing him with Roberts. It's an interesting idea. I'm not sure who else is going to be all of a sudden available, though.
Jim, we really appreciate your time. We know you got a sick kid there at home. Do you mind if we just talk some George Springer before we let you go? If you've got to go,
sure.
You absolutely. Yeah, you're all right.
I've got 5 more minutes.
Okay. The preservation of George Springer seems to be one of the biggest talking points in Blue Jays land, and for good reason. Obviously, he's had a very injury-plagued last couple of seasons with this organization. A lot of talk about his age, his size, and playing center field, and just looking through comparables throughout baseball history. Normally, where George Springer is at, they get moved to a corner outfield spot because it's just too hard on the body playing center field.
Yeah.
When you look at some of the candidates out there, Michael Conforto is a free agent. Brandon Nimmo is out there. Just some Mets guys that could probably, bring a lefty bat and fill in some time in center. Do you think that moving George Springer from center field is a priority for this organization, or do you think it's a little overblown?
I don't know if it's a priority. I don't know. I do think it's should it be? There has to be, you think about 5-year plans, right? Obviously this is not a 5-year plan because he's gone in 5 years, but it needs to be in the plan. Whatever the timeline is that they make their plans for things, there needs to be a plan. So this is going to be his age 33 season coming up. This is, in my opinion, the final year where you can go into spring training. George Springer's our center fielder. After this year, and even I think you have to sprinkle it in this year, you start working him into that left field conversation, the right field conversation, and then you've got Teoscar and Lourdes, and maybe one of them get moved this offseason to help improve the club in another area of need, whether that's pitching or bringing in a lefty bat or whatever. If you could turn Lourdes Gurriel Jr. into a defensive center field upgrade, and that player also just so happens to hit left-handed, I think you do that, and then maybe Springer moves to left field sooner rather than later. But it should be a concern. It should be an issue because, there has to be with how much we see him injured. I don't want, we want that bat. We're seeing the bat, whether it's because of the injuries or because of the age or because of declining skills, we're seeing the numbers decline offensively for George Springer. So we need to try to make sure that offense is still there. And if moving him to left field, moving him to DH keeps the offense there, then I think that's what they need to do sooner rather than later. I mean, this was a 2019, 39 home runs. 2017, 34 home runs. This is a 30 homer guy who hit 20, and he hit 22 with us in 2021, and he played half the season. So you saw the power in 21 in limited time. We did not see the power this year. And it's not like that was
two bad elbows.
Exactly. So if you have him in left field, if you have him at DH, but again, this is the last year I think you can consider him playing center field. Moving forward, I think you got to consider him as a left fielder or a DH. And, I was talking with the guys from Blue Jays today. I don't know if this is a long-term fix, but I think Kevin Kiermaier is going to be available on the free agent market. I think there's a very good chance that the Rays do not pick up that club option. It's $13 million. And at this point, what are you doing? The fact that Kiermaier is a lefty bat, the fact that he is, I think, still of significant value as a center fielder, the playoff experience that Kevin Kiermaier brings, I would love to have somebody like Kiermaier in center field for the defensive purpose, for the lefty bat purpose, for the Toronto Blue Jays, and move Springer to another spot. Nimmo,
even if Kiermaier's a guy off the bench, that's better than Zimmer or Tapia.
Exactly. And it's the postseason. I want a guy that has postseason experience. I want more postseason experience in that clubhouse. Brendan Nimmo doesn't bring that. Andrew Benintendi doesn't really bring that. Kevin Kiermaier brings that. And that's what I would. And also Kevin Kiermaier should not be that expensive. So, looking for all of that upside for what should not be a lot of money, which should not be a long-term contract. And you put him in center field. Springer can be center field sometimes, left field sometimes, DH sometimes. We got to get the offense from Springer. I think the club needs that in a big way. But it is definitely a valid point, and it needs to be on some form of timeline to get done, to make happen.
Jim, we could talk baseball with you all day long, honestly.
I could too.
Thank you so much for joining us, man. We're honestly just big fans of you and your channel and your content you create. And hopefully we can twist your arm and have you back here sometime soon.
I appreciate that. Likewise, feelings mutual. I'm a fan of what you guys do. You guys get some of the best guests that I mean, in Blue Jay land, some of the best guests you can even ask for. Anybody that's watching or listening to this maybe came over because they saw I was here. Check these guys out. Check the guests. Check the content. It's good stuff. You guys do a great job. Thank you for having me on.
Appreciate that, Jim.
Thanks a lot, Jim.
Go be dad. Take care of your kids. We'll talk to you later.
There we go. Right on. Sounds good, guys. Thank you.
Cheers. That's Jim Riley from Ballcap Sports, everybody. Check out his content if you have yet to do so. Some really good stuff. We're going to wrap it up here. Thank you so much for joining us. You can, of course, follow us on Twitter at Walk Off Podcast, on Instagram, The Walk Off Podcast. The link for our Discord is in the show notes. There's 200 rabid Blue Jays fans in there. The chatting has definitely slowed down in Discord. It is a very sad time for a Blue Jays fan, but as time heals all wounds, I'm sure things will get back to a tempered pace in there anyways. Thanks again, everybody, for watching. Really appreciate all the interaction, and everyone who is still paying attention and you've yet to hit subscribe or like this video, please do so. All the best. Cheers.